And welcome to this special Fox 11 Town Hall Roundtable discussion, The New Addiction. We are taking an in-depth look at the ongoing opioid crisis in Northeast Wisconsin. I'm Robert Hornacek, and I'll be your host for the next half hour, guiding you through a conversation with a panel of experts who each has their own unique perspective on the issue. I'm going to introduce that panel now. I'm joined today by Nadine Miskovich. She's a former opioid addict who is in long-term recovery. She's also the Chief of Operations for Rise Together, which is a nonprofit organization that educates young people about addiction. Also joining us is Andrew Smith. He has spent the last 3 years as the Chief of Police in Greenbay, and before that, he spent many years with the Los Angeles Police Department. And on the end is Tina Marie Baton. She's a substance abuse counselor and a social worker at the Jackie Nitschke Treatment Center in Greenbay. Thank you all for coming in to talk about this incredibly important issue today. Nadine, let's start with you and just kind of paint a picture a little bit for us, and kind of talk to us about the path that led you to opioid use.
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me on today. It is an honor to be able to share my story of recovery. And you know, it started for me long back, quite a few years ago for me already, that I started using and abusing substances. And for me, it actually didn't start from a place of just abusing opioids. It actually started earlier than that with just experimenting. You know, as a young girl at 13, 14 years old, I was already predisposed to substance use disorder of family members and community members. And I started using substances by the time, or opioids specifically, by the time I was 16 going on 17 years old. And what was unique for me is that it wasn't something that I ever expected. It wasn't something that I planned. It wasn't something that I dreamed of. I never said, when I grow up, I can't wait to become an opioid addict. That was never in the plan. But it started, you know, at such an early age. But what's exciting is I found recovery at an early age too.
Right. Was it prescription pills, or what form did it take?
Yeah, so it started with prescription pills, and in an innocent sense of trying my first Percocet was something that I didn't think was that big of a deal because it was prescribed by a doctor, you know, and it was given from a family member. And so it was something that I thought wasn't going to cause much harm or much of a problem. But the first time I tried it, it immediately just had this reaction of that I wanted more of it.
And did it just escalate from there?
It did. It escalated quickly. Not only was I using and abusing prescription pills, which quickly led to intravenous use, which led to heroin use shortly after that.
If you look back at that time, how would you describe what those drugs did to you and were doing to you?
They were destroying me. If I were to use one word to say for my life during that time period, was really messy. I was so ashamed, I was unhappy, I felt lonely, and it was this place of, I thought I found what was going to make me feel better. You know, using and abusing substances didn't just start by using them. You know, it stemmed long before that to my childhood of not ever feeling good enough, you know, seeking for something more in my life. And when I thought I found that more through substances, I thought that it was going to make everything better, when in fact it just started to make everything worse.
How low did it get? How far down were you?
The path that I led actually started to get really bad really quickly. So while I started using at 14, just with experimentation, by the time I was using heroin, by the time I was 17, I mean, I wasn't even out of high school yet while I was already abusing substances like this. And while after high school is when things got completely out of control. I lost, you know, my job. I didn't have a place to live. I was, you know, burning bridges with everybody in my life, whether it was family members or friends. And at that point in my life, I was ready to give up because it got so bad, and the shame and the guilt that I carried for the mistakes and the choices that I was making, I didn't know how to deal with it anymore, and I didn't want to deal with it anymore.
Chief, I want to bring you into the conversation. When you hear Nadine talk about the path she took, I saw you nodding your head a few times there. Are there certain things that you heard that kind of stick out as, oh yeah, I've heard that before, or this seems like a common way this story goes.
You know, I've heard that before, especially lately, as people get involved in an opioid addiction. It usually starts off small, often starts out just as she said. It's troublesome to me to hear it started at 12 or 13, but that's so common now. You know, youngsters are getting into experimentation at very young ages, so that's troublesome for me. My experience in Los Angeles, you know, as a young policeman growing up, was it was a Skid Row, inner city, older male kind of an experience, you know, shooting up heroin. Those are the people that we'd run into. And now across Wisconsin, Brown County, city of Green Bay, we're seeing it's young people, men and women, you know, of all different types.
Yeah. Tina Marie, hearing the path somebody takes into this, this what becomes a life really, because it consumes you. What stuck out from that?
I think, you know, Nadine put it really well. I think the rapid progression is significant in that we've seen, especially young people who have burned so many bridges that they really have such few resources. The hope diminishes really fast, and so the need for you know, treatment and support. The support is really a challenge for many to feel supported in that process of early recovery, enough to feel, again, hopeful. And I think the issues around, you know, the risks that are taken, the choices that are made, it really does become a lifestyle, and it's like a perpetual cycle around having a great deal of shame and stigma attached to being having a use disorder, and then behaviors that follow that are incredibly shameful, and then the need to use to deal with those feelings. So it's like this vicious cycle that I think really just perpetuates the progression and leads to a lot of devastation.
All right. We've reached the time to take our first commercial break already. Stay with us. We'll be right back to continue our conversation. We're going to talk about how opioids are impacting families, lives, and our entire community. Stay with us. And welcome back to this special Fox 11 Town Hall Roundtable discussion, The New Addiction. We're taking an in-depth look at the ongoing opioid crisis in Northeast Wisconsin. I wanted to continue the conversation. And Nadine, I'll start with you to talk about a little bit the impact that you saw your use having, not just on your own life, but on the life of the people in your circle.
Yeah, so my addiction impacted everybody that I was around. But what it really stemmed back to was even how addiction impacted me by watching my parents struggle, watching my oldest sister struggle with their own addictions, which eventually led me to struggling with my own. And to see how it impacted like my friends and family members that were around me, a lot of my family was already being impacted. And so it was this rabbit hole that we continued to, you know, go so deep into, and not really understanding what resources were available or how to even have the conversation around the struggles that we were facing as a whole. And unfortunately, you know, we continue to stay silent about it, and it was hard to talk about it because we didn't really know how. It was easier to kind of brush the problem under the rug and pretend like it wasn't happening. But unfortunately for me personally, watching, you know, some of my really good friends, you know, turn the blind eye to me, you know, or walk away, or, you know, not really reach out for help. It was really difficult for me. It was hard to see how it was impacting even some of the relationships closest to me, like with my sister,
Right.
And that hurt.
Chief, when you think of opioids and the impact they're having on the community, what are your thoughts?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is overdose deaths. You know, we're losing 24 people last year in Wisconsin, in Brown County to overdose. 18 of those were overdose deaths due to opioids. So just think of each of those people that's been affected, or their families that's been affected. I think about the crimes that occur. Like it or not, people that get addicted run out of friends, run out of family, run out of money eventually, and many times they turn to crime. We'll see a string of robberies here in Green Bay or in Brown County, low-level street robberies or gas station robberies, and the first thing we think of is, okay, somebody's dope sick, they can't get the money to support that habit, so they're going into the gas station with a fake pistol and trying to get $100 from the guy in the till. till. So we'll see little strings like that, and until we catch them, there's victims all over the place.
Right.
So, or burglaries, breaking into people's houses or breaking into garages. We'll see a youngster will do that when they get addicted. They have no other means of supporting their habit. So there's crime that's there. There's the tragedy of the opiate-related deaths. It affects all of us here in the county.
Yeah. And what about the approach law enforcement has taken to the issue, to dealing with it? Is there more of an awareness that, okay, we're dealing with somebody with an addiction and that's really at the root of this criminal behavior?
Well, our thoughts as far as enforcement have changed a little bit when it comes to the person that's the addict. In the old days, it was catch as many as you can, get them into jail, and keep them there as long as you can, because that's how you keep your houses from getting broken into and your gas stations from getting robbed. And make no mistake, we're still ruthless and relentless when it comes to people bringing drugs into our community. If they're dealers, if they're shipping drugs here, we want to catch them. We'll do everything to catch them. But we recognize that people in addicted situations need help to get out of that. We have drug court, we have heroin court, which uses a lot of the different mechanisms of support and constant monitoring to try and get people out of that addiction and back into the regular society.
Yeah. Tina Marie, what do you see in your work as a substance abuse counselor when it comes to the impact opioids are having on people, on families, on the community?
Well, it's a huge domino effect and a lot of devastation. There's nothing real positive that's coming from the actual use, and I think the challenge often that family members feel in trying to find resources or at least come out of hiding to feel less shame and guilt around their own experience of what did I do wrong, or how can I help, or how did I let this happen? And there's a lot of shame and a lot of blame, and often looking for answers. Definitely in need of support. So family members are very much affected and impacted, even though usually the individual who's using the substances only sees themselves as harming themselves. Right. There's very much an impact on everybody.
What's different about these drugs? And I'll ask that to Tina Marie. Is there something different when it comes to the treatment, to the impact, that there's something specific about opioids that are even worse than some of the other drugs?
There's a more rapid progression, in part because I think the withdrawal is so significant. A huge gap of service is the need for a medically monitored detox that we don't have. There's the term called medical necessity that follows the need for detox that's actually paid for by whether it be insurance companies or other funding sources. That doesn't get paid for because the withdrawal is not life-threatening. However, in being more proactive versus reactive, we'd look at detox in our community as being essential to getting people in a position where they are able to maintain sobriety or get on the other side of it, so there aren't the overdose deaths and the other reactions that happen.
We've painted a pretty dark picture, but yet we're all here, you're still here. We're going to talk more about how you ended up where you are today when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Robert Hornacek. As we continue our conversation about the ongoing opioid crisis, I'm still joined by Nadine Miskovich. She's a former opioid addict who's in long-term recovery. Also joining us is Greenbay Police Chief Andrew Smith and Tina Marie Baton, who's a substance abuse counselor in Greenbay. Thank you all again for coming in and talking about this. We have a short amount of time. We could probably be here for a week talking about all the ins and outs and all the issues. But I wanted to get to some of the good news in this. For example, you're here.
Yeah.
How did you get from where you were to where you are today?
Well, that is a fantastic question. So for me, initially my road to recovery, or even the term recovery, was not something that I ever really foresaw. It was never something that I ever had in my vocabulary before. And so finding recovery was a journey. And fortunately enough for me, it started by family support. It was my sister, who reached out to me when I was in a really deep, dark place. And when she reached out to me, she didn't shame me. She didn't force me to change. She didn't talk about all the mistakes or bad things that I did. Instead, she showed up and she said, "Nadine, I'm here for you. I love you. I care about you. What can I do to help you?" And fortunately enough for me, I was able to detox and find support and get involved with the recovery community, which has led me to this journey over the last 5 years of now leading a national nonprofit organization.
Why do you share your story? Why did you say yes to this?
to bring hope, to bring light to the darkness. I think, we live in a world that is so vastly divided, and we see, so many people that are lonely and unhappy, and there's so much despair. And I think when you can bring a positive side or a lighter side to a really heavy conversation, that's where you find hope, and that's where you can find change.
Tina Marie, I'll ask you, what in your work, what do you see as some of the keys to somebody not just getting clean, but staying clean?
Getting clean, as mentioned before, the detoxification or working through the withdrawal, having a great deal of support, ongoing support, best kind of support is really within the recovering community, as they really understand, have been there, done that, understand what it takes to maintain sobriety. I think a clear pathway to treatment, funds for treatment and services. I think there's the collaboration of community leaders and community systems, so that we're not operating in our own silos, because we're all impacted by this, and to come together with solutions and resources to really address the issue.
Yeah. Chief, how do you see the police, the criminal justice side of things, working together with treatment providers to deal with this problem?
Well, I think heroin court is a great example where people go to, after we catch them doing something and we know they're addicted, part of their sentencing, it's cost effective for us because we're not just keeping people in jails, is to get them into some type of treatment program, closely monitor them, hold them accountable, make sure they have the support that they need. I think that's a great piece for us. We get support from all over the community. Purveya gave us many thousands of dollars for the Narcan. We have Narcan in all our vehicles so we can save people that are undergoing an overdose. We even Narcan for our dogs in case they're doing a drug search and our dog gets overdosed with fentanyl or something like that. Also, I think an important part is educating our young people about the dangers of trying that first pill, of doing that, getting started down that road. If we can prevent people from going down that road, I think our whole society is going to be better.
Nadine, what do you think as far as people out there who are struggling? What are some things maybe family members or friends can do to reach out to that person?
I think one of the biggest things is to talk about it. I know addiction or the conversation can be hard to talk about, so making sure that you're getting educated beforehand and showing up, for people that are struggling. I think so often the people that are struggling are feeling lonely and there's shame, and so they're afraid to talk about it. But if someone shows up and asks them how they're doing, asks them or offers them some support that they need, I think it makes it just a little bit easier on them and takes the weight off of their own shoulders.
All right, we got to take another commercial break. Stay with us. We'll be right back to wrap up our conversations. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to this special Fox 11 Town Hall Roundtable discussion, The New Addiction, as we wrap up our conversation on the opioid crisis here in Northeast Wisconsin. And we just have a couple minutes left. And Tina Marie, I'll start with you just to offer some thoughts and reflections on maybe how far we've come, but what still needs to be done to make a dent on this problem.
I think we've come a long way in collaborating, having conversations, as Chief mentioned, around the courts, the specialized courts, to assist with getting people into treatment and focusing on a solution more so than just the criminal aspects. I think continuing that support is key. If we can as a community, get away from the judgment and stigma, focus more on the solution. I think one of the pivotal experience that I've seen with people who have, with families who have had the tragedy of losing a loved one, identifying that in the obituary has been, as painful as it is, it's a powerful statement. It educates, it brings awareness. So there's a lot of things that I think that we've done in little pieces that we can continue to do and continue to improve our efforts as a community as a whole within each of our camps, so to speak.
Yeah. Chief Smith, what would you like to see happen from here to continue to make a dent when it comes to opioids?
There's a lot of things. There's no one magic bullet to solve this problem. I think there's a lot of different pieces to this puzzle. One of them is the overprescribing of medications. We're working with the medical community to try and raise awareness of that. We do a drug take back at our department, 14,000 pounds over the past few years of prescriptions we've recovered and had destroyed. 295 pounds already this year just in the city of Greenbay. we've recovered. That tells me that there's still a lot of overprescribing of medication, so I'd like to see that fixed. The drug courts that we talked about earlier, I think those are great. Educating our young people that this could happen to anybody. Don't get yourself going down this path. And anything we can do to keep the drugs from coming into our community in the first place, I'd be in favor of any kind of anything we can do to stop that.
Yeah. Nadine, you said you share your story to give hope. What is it that gives you hope about this topic?
The young people. So I get the honor and opportunity to serve thousands of young people on a yearly basis, and to see their courage of standing up and speaking out around these really important, volatile issues, it gives me hope for our next generation. I mean, when we talk about, educating and focusing on prevention, I think prevention is key. I think that is what brings us hope, is looking at what we can do for our next generation, of building them up as leaders and having these uncomfortable, squirm-worthy conversations around these really important topics.
If there's somebody at home right now watching that's struggling with this, that's using or that is in the throes of addiction, what would you say to them today?
I would say that it's okay to ask for help, that no matter what you're going through or what you're struggling with, recovery is possible, and to talk about it and to know that it's okay, that there's people out there who get it, who understand it, and who want to be there for you.
Well, thank you very much, each and every one of you, for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that wraps up our conversation here on our special Fox 11 Town Hall Roundtable discussion on the new addiction. It's not a new problem. Opioids have been around for quite a long time, but there is a renewed focus on this issue. So I would like to thank all of my guests for being here, Tina Marie, Chief, and especially you, Nadine, for sharing your story. It takes a lot of courage to do that, but you know what? We're all human. We're all in the same boat. We all have our struggles. It's important that we get out and share them, especially when it comes to a topic like this, because it really can make a difference. Thank you all for being here at home. And stay tuned. We'll continue the conversation here on Fox 11.